Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast. This is my curse. That's the intro song, guys. My curse. You know, the first question for today is going to be by Steven, and this is an important one. Welcome to the Steroids Podcast, by the way. This is your host, Dan the Bodybuilder of Thailand, of course, who will be returning to Thailand next month. That's right, guys. That's right. I got to return to my place of peace. I got to return to my place of my birth. Not my physical birth, but the birth of the character you see today, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. You know what? I was going to go to Eastern Europe this year, okay? But it got too late. It got too late in the year, and now it's winter. And I'm going to have to go in the spring, so I'm going to wait out the winter in Thailand. So the first question today is from Steven, and he asks, back pain and muscle pain from heavy compound lifts, any remedy? Yeah. So the first thing is that if you're a weightlifter and you're a serious weightlifter, you're lifting all the time, if you're not doing some kind of soft tissue work, your life is not going to be as good as if you were. So soft tissue work can go from anywhere from getting a massage to doing foam rolling, or what I do a little bit of foam rolling, but I also have this thing called a Theracane, which is like a cane that reaches around and you can push it into knots in your muscles and put pressure on them. And then the thing that I do the most and rely on the most is rolling on a baseball or a croquet ball or a lacrosse ball, some kind of hard, small ball. Personally, I use a croquet ball because it's rock hard, and I put all my weight on it and I roll the tissue of the muscles around, wherever I'm having pain or wherever I'm having knots. I roll the muscles in that area around with my body weight on top of the hard, small ball. And it hurts really badly. But if you stay on one spot that's especially sensitive, it'll start to get more and more intense, the pain. And then after about 20 seconds, it peaks. And then you'll feel it start decreasing or the pain draining away until you reach about 45 seconds. And then that's like one session. And usually to get a muscle to really release, you got to do anywhere from 5 to 10 or even 15 sessions. And then that causes so many problems in your body that happen because of weightlifting to go away. So when muscles, and you're talking about back pain, okay? So I'm going to talk about back pain and how this applies to back pain. But hear me out first, okay? When muscles are put under stress or under strain over and over again, repeated body movements, the body starts making adaptations to fortify those positions and make those positions stronger if they're like a stressful position, okay? So this is why when you go to Asia and you see women who have been hunched over, like doing that thing where they squat down and hunch over, they've been doing that habitually all their life. By the time they're an old woman, their spine is curved because that was a stressful position to be in. and they're in it for a long time, and then their body, because that's a stressful position, that's a stimulus, their body makes fortifications to make that position stronger and less likely to become injured if something happened. So this also happens with everything you do. Like, guys, you know, when you're typing on the computer, or people who have desk jobs, people who use the computer a lot, people who use a mouse, okay? The top, you probably have it. If you're listening to this, you probably have this because everybody uses computers so much. The top of your forearms, your forearm extensor muscles, will be like cord-like and very hard, and you can't press them in. They're not like a flexible muscle. And now feel the muscle on the other side, where you're not, you know, on the side of this of your forearm, the same as the palm of your hand, or feel your bicep, feel your shoulder. All these muscles are not going to have that hard texture like that, the top of your forearms, your forearm extensor muscles have, okay? And your forearm extensor muscles are not supposed to feel like that. They're supposed to feel like every other muscle in your body, okay? But because these are being used so much, the body makes fortifications, and that's why people have wrist pain, finger problems, hand problems. They say, oh, I have carpal tunnel. It's really these forearm extensor muscles are screwed up, and so many people have this screwed up, and you can feel if you have it right now by feeling around for this hard cord-like muscle that is not the texture of all the other muscles. Okay, all the muscles are made of the same material. So if that one is different, it's because there's a problem, and it's because of the fact that you're holding your hands in that position all day long. And so those forearm extensor muscles are under strain because they're flexed. Because if the forearm extensor muscle is deflexed, okay, the hand's going to drop, and it's going to drop forward, and the fingers are going to be pointing towards the ground. But if those things are contracted, like you keep them all day, then they're in this contracted position all day long, okay? Day after day after day. And the body starts making fortifications. So it makes these little adhesions. It's a form of connective tissue that go between your fibers and fortify those positions, keep them in these knots or hard spots. I went to the doctor for this stuff before I knew how to handle them, and they told me there's nothing we can do for you. You're just going to have to take opiate pain pills. So that was totally unacceptable. So that was how I figured this stuff out. And when you talk about professional athletes, most of them are having soft tissue work done on them. So something as simple as massage can help you take care of this problem. But if you put your muscles through paths of motion that are very stressful on them, they're going to get these adhesions that keep them in these contracted positions all the time. So you have to do something about it. Another thing that they can do is that they always refer pain to the joints in the area. So that's why the one on the forearms that you get from typing refers pain down to your wrists and make people think they have carpal tunnel or that they're getting arthritis in their fingers. But the ones in the back can make you feel like you have back pain, or can make it feel like you're having pain when you're trying to breathe and your ribs are needing to expand, or can make you feel like you have like sciatica, like sciatic nerve pain, okay? There's the one that is, you know what, this is the most common injection spot. So because this is a common steroid injection spot, this is also an issue because you're doing squatting, you're doing deadlifting where you're bending over, and that upper outer glute area gets pulled and stressed on there. There's this muscle down there called gluteus minimus, and it connects a part of your pelvis to the iliac crest area. That's the part that you can feel if you reach down and feel for your hip bones of the hips. It contracts just this little part, the pelvis, and then the leg area, part of the femur, to this area. It connects it together, and when you do these movements, it puts a lot of stress on that little muscle there that has that joint connectivity, and it gets stressed out. And then on top of it, you're doing injections into that spot, the upper outer glute, upper outer quadrant of your glute. You're doing injections to that spot as well, and the scar tissue adhesions are growing, and so you can think you have sciatica, which is like a shooting pain, like nerve pain down the sides of your legs, especially when you bend over. And so that's coming from this spot. Another thing is you can think that you have bad discs in your back, and it's really these little bony protrusions on the where your hip bones, where your pelvis, you can feel in the back, and you have like those dimples in your hip bones. There's these little like bony protrusions that are the top of your pelvis in those areas that you can feel with your thumbs if you reach back there. And if you feel around on those thumbs, you'll feel that like there's a bit of muscle on there, and it gets sore when you feel it if you have a problem, okay? And those are the origins of some of the lower back muscles. And when they can get inflamed from doing things like squatting or deadlifting or overextending, or doing these movements over and over again, and so they can get inflamed and irritated from having so much tension and pulling on them, and it can make them contract because of this inflammation that happens there, and these fortifications, adhesions that are growing there to make it a stronger position since it's irritated on a regular basis. And then when that does that, it puts pressure on your discs, and so they feel like you may feel like you have a bulging disc in your back, but you really don't. It's this thing going here, which is like an artificial pressure between your discs, and it's coming from these protrusions, these little bony protrusions where this it's part of the insertion on some of your lower back muscles, where the origin of the muscle starts and then goes across and extends your back. So these are things that this can cause back pain, okay? And that was Steven's question, was is there any remedy for fixing back pain and muscle pain from heavy compound lifts? And that's the thing, is soft tissue work and finding out these little areas that cause these problems. A lot of the joint issues that you have, if you go to the doctor and they say, we can't treat this, there's nothing wrong with you, stuff like that. Or they say, like, you have tendinitis. Or, you're a young guy and they're like, you have arthritis. It's like, no, man, these guys, like doctors, they have no concept of soft tissue injury. They're only going on structural things and things that they can see, and then they can give you like medication and stuff like that to fix your problems. So when you go to them and they say, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's something wrong with you, that's when you got to take things into your own hands, man. That's how I found out about this stuff. Working on myself. Trigger point therapy, muscle therapy is something that can help you to relieve old injuries. And, if you may have a joint injury and you may think that you need surgery, trying this kind of stuff out first can be a good idea. All right, next question is from Maurice, and he asks, what do you think about using Superdrol 15 milligrams every other day? Is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Oh, okay. So what he really said was 15 milligrams every other day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then 40 milligrams on the days that he's not taking Anavar. So Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. 40 milligrams Anavar on the days that he's not taking Superdrol. And then he's going to take nothing on Sunday. So he's doing like a kind of alternating orals on different days throughout the week, alternating between Superdrol 15 milligrams and Anavar 40 milligrams, and then taking nothing on Sunday. So one day a week off completely. I'm assuming he's taking testosterone at the same time. I think that sounds good. I think that sounds like interesting. So the thing with how steroids work is that they attach to androgen receptors and transmit a message, and the androgen receptor is on the outside of the cell, the muscle cell or whatever cell the androgen or steroid is stimulating, and it transmits a message to the nucleus of the cell where the DNA is, and makes the DNA express itself differently, okay? So that's the main way that they work. They also work in other ways, like they work completely. They have some effects that come on the moment that you take them, okay? But other effects need to get to that DNA, transmit that message to that DNA in the cell in order to start making an effect and doing, the full effects or even the main effects of the roid. So with that, makes sense to me that you'd want that constant stimulus, daily stimulus in there to be like transmitting that message constantly and getting the full effect of the drug. But you will be having that happen somewhat, doing it every other day. It won't be, but I'm just thinking about how it could be as strong as possible, right? This probably won't be as strong as possible. I don't think you'll get the strongest effect from Anavar or the strongest effect from Superdrol, because you're not letting them build up in your system and hitting that signal to transmit that message to make your DNA express itself differently every day. And these things are in and out of your system after about 9 hours. You know, they're gone after 9. Some of the ones like D-ball, they only last like 9-12 hours, but then other ones of them last like 24 hours when they're still producing like a noticeable effect. On paper, at least, when you look at studies, that's how long that they're producing effects. But in the real world, I think they produce effects for a bit longer. So I don't really think that I would do that. As far as what do you think about Superdrol 15 milligrams every other day, alternated with 40 milligrams Anavar every other day? It seems like a healthier way to run Superdrol, and then you can also run the Anavar in there too. It sounds like every other day to get some gains, but I just don't think that sounds like the optimal way to do it. Next question is from College Rower. Experience using B6 vitamin to control prolactin instead of Caber. Okay, I went over this in the last podcast, the Trenbolone episode of the podcast, and the answer is that vitamin B6, it says on paper, yes, on studies, that it reduces prolactin, but as far as using Trenbolone and being on Trenbolone and using vitamin B6 to reduce your prolactin, that's gonna blow up in your face. So know this. I've experimented with it. It does not do anything in the real world to be able to combat the prolactin effects caused by Trenbolone. So if you don't have Cabergoline or Pramipexole on hand and you get those prolactin induced side effects and you try to attack it with B6, that's going to be a freaking nightmare. All right, next question. Big Duke asks, how do you inject your glutes? Do you lay down? What are your favorite injection spots? Well, you already know I got an infection from shooting bacteria, flesh-eating bacteria-laced underground lab gear into my thigh. So I definitely do not inject there anymore. My favorite injection spot is the first injection spot that I ever did, which was actually my hip flexor muscles. On the front, it's like the front outer left and right side of my hips. You know, when you reach down and you feel the top of the hip bone, the iliac crest, and you're right like on the frontal edge. If you stand up and you shift your weight between your heels on your left and your right side, and you stand up straight and shift your weight, you'll see this muscle come sticking out every time you shift your weight to that side. The muscle comes and it kind of like protrudes out and flexes, and then you shift your weight and then it flattens back against the hip again. You shift your weight to the other heel. So that muscle right there is like a perfect injection spot, and it's really easy to see, and it really accepts oil really well, and you can go 3 cc's in that spot, and yeah, it just works really, really well. And you can stabilize too if you want. If you're worried about having shaky hands or something, then since it's right on the front of your body like that, so it's right between like where your femur inserts into your hip bone. It's that area on the front outside where your hip is. And so that area, it doesn't give me PIP, like post-injection pain. And you can do a full 3 cc's there, and you can stabilize it, and you can see it, so it's great. When people say, how do you do glute injections? Well, with glute injections, some people do lie down, but I've never done that. I just turn around because it's supposed to be in the upper outer part of your glute. So, I mean, you don't really have to turn that far to do that. And what I do is I just use one hand. I don't use two hands to do it. I just use one hand. And so if I did my left glute, then it would be my left hand that I'd have the syringe in. And what I would do is I would turn around so that like I was facing the same direction as my hip, you know? So I turned around like enough so that I was looking to my side now. I'm looking to my left side, and I'd take that left hand and I'd put it back behind me, and I'd just kind of like dart the needle like into my ass, and I'd into my glute muscle. I would dart it, okay? And that means that I would like quickly kind of go like, kind of like you'd throw a dart. And I would do it just with one hand like that, right into that spot. I'd be holding the plastic on the barrel of the syringe, and I'd kind of dart it like that. And then once it was in there a little bit, then I would take the rest of my hand and I would slowly start like pushing it down, like burying it into the muscle until it was all the way buried to the hilt. And then I wouldn't pull back on the syringe or anything like that, because, you know, it's going to be moving around on the way in there. And then if you pull back on the syringe to see if you're like in a vein or something, well, like as soon as you let go of the syringe, it like wobbles and shit too. It's not like veins are these massive things, you know, so that's not going to be an issue. That's the way that I do it. And so it's going to be wobbling around a bit anyways too when I'm putting it in too, and that doesn't bother me. So then once it's buried to the hilt, the needle, I just go to the top of the plunger and I press it down with the meat of my hand, you know, like the meat of my thumb. I put my fingers, like my middle finger and my ring finger, around the two little protrusions on the barrel that stick out to help you push. So I put my fingers there, and then I put not my thumb, but I put the meat of behind my thumb on the plunger, and I push that down. I collapse the plunger into the barrel of the needle. And then after I've done that, then I wait about 5 seconds, because if you don't wait a little bit, then some of the oil can kind of like come like shooting out of the hole that you just made. And I don't like to do that because I just put it in there, so I don't want it coming out. So I wait about 5 seconds. It's still buried to the hilt, you know, and the injection has been performed. And then I'm like, okay, 5 seconds. And now then I pull it out, and I pull it out fast. I just do it in one motion. I just go whoop, and then it's out. But when I put it in, you know, I'm doing it slowly. It takes me maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's probably how long it takes me to put it in. Like that's the speed of which I'm pressing the 1-inch needle until it's buried to the hilt. And then when I take it out, it's like whoop, and that's the whole thing. So like 1 or 2 seconds, 1 second, not 2 seconds. I just pull it right out. And the time that it makes to go whoop, that's how long it takes me. And then I immediately take my hand or a paper towel or a piece of toilet paper, and I press that area immediately. Because if you don't do that, it can kind of like bleed more, or because, you know, a lot of times it doesn't even bleed at all. But, you know, maybe there's a drop of blood, but if you don't press it and you just like leave it, it can kind of like bleed for a little bit. So what I do is I just immediately put my hand there, and I put a lot of pressure on it and kind of like massage it, putting pressure in different angles there for maybe 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, and then I'm done. I'm done. That's it. But the first thing that I do always, though, is I've always got alcohol, rubbing alcohol for antiseptic. So before any injection, I've either got alcohol pads that are the swabs, or I've got just liquid alcohol that, I would pour on to something like a piece of a paper towel, and then like soaking it and then rubbing it around, cleaning the skin where you're going to do the injection before you do the injection. All right. So, yep, that's how I do the injections. Full little injection rundown there for you. All right, we're going to get to the next question here. Mort asks, how do you use clenbuterol safely, and what are its effects? Okay, clenbuterol is it's the combination of the cheapest and the most potent fat burner. Human growth hormone is probably the best fat burner. It's kind of a tie with clenbuterol. They're the two most powerful fat burners, and they can also both enhance your performance at the same time. So things like T3, that can't really be said for. Taking T3 all the time is not going to enhance your performance, although T3 is a really good fat burner, but it's not better than clenbuterol or human growth hormone, and T3 decreases your performance. So clenbuterol and human growth hormone are much better fat burners than T3, thyroid hormone. Clenbuterol can burn fat just by taking the tablets. If you are just eating like clean food, and you're eating when you're hungry, so meaning you're not eating like junk food and things that are unnecessary, you're just eating a good healthy diet. You're not eating processed foods. You're eating, a bro diet, if that's what you're doing. And you occasionally, I'm meaning like a couple times a week, and not a couple days a week. I'm talking a couple times a week. Have something else. That's fine. And then you use if you use about 80 micrograms of clenbuterol per day, like 40 to 80 micrograms of clenbuterol per day while doing that and going to the gym and working out, well, you'll start losing your fat. I'm saying that if you use clenbuterol and then you do those things, you diet like that, and you go to the gym and just do your regular workouts with the weightlifting, like, you will start losing fat. That's just the bottom line. And you don't have to starve yourself at all or go hungry at all. You just have to eat healthy food, go to the gym, and take the clenbuterol, and you will burn fat. When you go up onto this stuff, it can be a little bit intense at first because it can make you shake. So, and it can also give you anxiety, and it can also make you feel angry. So, you can start out at like 20 micrograms per day, or you can start out at 40 micrograms per day. And then, you can keep it like that, for a week, and then you increase it a bit. So on the second week, take 40 micrograms, or the second week, take 60 micrograms. And then, like third week, take a little bit more, 60 to 80 micrograms or so, and you'll get a really good fat burning effect out of that. And then probably after 3 weeks, take a 2-week break. It takes about 2 weeks for your receptors to get clean again and for it to have the same most powerful effect. It will keep working if you just keep using it longer than 3 weeks, but it won't work quite as good. And so it'll have kind of diminishing effects, and you'll get quite a tolerance to it, and you'll definitely need to up the dose in order to keep it working the way that you want it to. And that's usually how guys build up to dosages, like, because, some people build up to dosages around 120, 160, 200 micrograms per day. Usually they come in 40 microgram tablets, which can have a pretty noticeable effect on your heart when you do that. Also, it'll make you really jittery and probably have a lot of anxiety. And you can even kind of run into things on accident a little bit. It's kind of weird. But it burns fat really well. So clenbuterol burns fat excellently. And you know what? The best thing about using clenbuterol is fasted cardio. If you use clenbuterol and do fasted cardio, dude, when you're doing your cardio, this goes for human growth hormone too, when you take human growth hormone and on a empty stomach. So fasted human growth hormone and clenbuterol together is like, wow, that really works good. But all you really need is clenbuterol, and you do fasted cardio, and it's like all the energy for that walk that you do, you know, or that run or whatever you're doing for your cardio just comes from your fat, and you start seeing the fat melt off of you. Fasted cardio works so good on clenbuterol. Same with human growth hormone. But yeah, you can keep on using it if you want, but you'll probably end up upping the dosages, and there's pretty uncomfortable side effects like really hard heart thumping, and so like the heart muscle contracting really hard, harder than you want it to, or maybe you can look down at your chest and actually see your chest rising and falling, and some like anxiety for irritation. So it's clenbuterol is not a fun thing to take just in general. It's stressful, and I'd rather not have that stuff in my system, but it's really effective, and it's also really cheap. Okay, next question is from Chicken Enjoy Gains. And Chicken Enjoy Gains says, what is a good cycle for someone who is not desperate for gains, is willing to wait to make long-term progress, and wants to effect health minimally, while looking great and feeling great and performing like an enhanced lifter in the gym? Okay, cool. This sounds like a moderate guy. He's realistic, but at the same time, he's moderate. So that's a good question, man. I'm gonna give you the answer that you're looking for. So if you want a good cycle and you're not desperate for gains, you're willing to wait, make long-term progress, affect health minimally, look great, feel great, perform like an enhanced lifter in the gym. Okay, well, the first thing is that you got to have a super physiological dosage of testosterone, okay? So that's going to be 500 milligrams per week. You know, 500 milligrams per week, it's possible, you know, very possible to do that without having any bad effects on your health markers, like on your blood work. So if you make the effort and fiddle around enough with your diet and some supplements like that, with some other supplements like support supplements if you need them, but mostly just fiddling around with your diet, you can usually, most guys can get their blood work to look good, to be all good in the good range on 500 milligrams of testosterone per week. I'm not a medical doctor, and this is not medical advice. This comes from my experience. And that's going to be a major one right there. And then another one is going to be something like Deca or Primobolan, okay? Because they both they're both used in humans, okay? You could say Equipoise, but Equipoise is meant for horses. But Primobolan and Deca have both been used in humans, studied in humans for years and years and years, okay? Ever since the 50s. And they both have been found to be pretty safe, pretty healthy. And if you look at your blood work when you're on them, again, at low dosages, there really won't be anything wrong about that blood work. So, you know, you're not looking to get really big really fast, but you are looking to make long-term improvements. So 500 milligrams of testosterone with 200 to 400 milligrams per week of Deca or Primobolan, or you could even go up to 500 milligrams of Deca or Primobolan per week to go with that. So 1 gram total of steroids, and then that would probably be the best dosage is 1 gram. If you're actually trying to be a bodybuilder, if you're not desperate for gains, you don't need them like super fast, super quick, but you want to be a bodybuilder and you're looking for something that you can do long term that's going to not affect your health much, and you have realistic expectations, then you know what? Something like, I wish I could tell you 250 milligrams per week and 250 milligrams of Primobolan per day, okay? Or 250 milligrams of Deca per day, okay? But you know what? That's not going to be enough. That's not going to be enough. You will plateau on that, and you won't be looking, you'll be just barely starting to reach to where you want to go. So, you know, and 500 500 testosterone and 200 Primobolan or Deca, that's going to be a lot better. That's going to be a lot better. And then if you were wanting to be a little more aggressive, then 500 testosterone and 500 Primobolan or Deca would be enough to get you like jacked as hell. If you were doing this for a long time and combining it with the next ingredient that I'm going to say, which is pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone at 2 IUs per day. So contrary to popular belief, human growth hormone does not take a long time to see the effects. It takes 2 to 3 days to see the effects after the first injection, okay? Human growth hormone is one of the quickest drugs at making visual changes to your physique, okay? It burns fat like crazy, and it also fills out your muscles and makes them more insulin sensitive while desensitizing your fat cells to insulin, and makes you bigger in 2 to 3 days after that first injection. If it's not doing this for you, then it's not legitimate, because this is what real human growth hormone, pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone, does. It makes a massive visual change to your appearance 2 to 3 days after the first injection, and all you need is 2 IUs per day, taken once in the morning on an empty stomach when you wake up, and you will have this effect when you combine it with anabolic steroids at the same time. Okay? So 4 IUs is better, 6 IUs is even better, and then more than 6 IUs, you get diminishing returns. You start noticing, you're getting more side effects, and you're spending a lot of money and not getting near as much bang for your buck, to say. And 2 IUs really gives like a great effect of pharmaceutical grade growth hormone. I'm not kidding you. If you're using pharmaceutical grade, 2 IUs per day, once in the morning, first thing when you wake up, injected into the stomach fat, makes a massive difference to everything you're doing with bodybuilding, to everything that you're doing. It makes everything else you take work better, and it makes you start looking really good. It's awesome. It's awesome. So that's what I would do. Chicken joy gains for my cycle if I was looking to make long-term progress, not desperate for gains, affect health mentally, look great, feel great, perform like an enhanced athlete, enhanced lifter in the gym, but not be like real grouchy or anything like that, only performing it like an enhanced lifter in the gym. Well, then I would say around 500 milligrams of testosterone with 200 to 500 milligrams of Primobolan and Deca, and 2 IUs and that's per week, those steroids, and then 2 IUs of pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone like genotropin or norditropin or serostim per day. All right, next question from Mako Shark. How do you tell women about your steroid use? How do I talk to my girlfriend about using steroids? Well, this is a funny one, because people are programmed by their cultures, okay? So you can't run away from culture if you are in that culture. And this is one of the things that I really learned from going around to different countries in the world and my home country and everything, and seeing that, we are social animals, and that prevailing thought of the majority will always have an effect on your mind. And you can have it matter to you in greater or lesser degrees, but because we are social animals, we feel this, and we feel the pressure. And there's no way that the group think does just have no effect on you. Unless you're like on drugs, it has an effect on you. So, and I don't mean performance enhancing drugs. I mean something else. So, with talking to your girlfriend about it, if you're living in a culture where steroids, male hormones are thought of as evil, well, you know what? Saying that word steroids, is going to always cause problems, okay? So the first thing you need to do is not refer to it by that word, because that word is like so tainted and like criminalized, One of the things with with that word is that the whole word for it is sex steroids. So if you say steroids in the way that you say the steroids that build muscles, then that definitely includes birth control pills, because birth control pills are also sex steroids. Like, that's why they call steroids, because they're sex steroids, okay? And the natural sex steroids of males and females are dihydrotestosterone, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, and estrone. Those are the natural sex steroids, okay? And then the male category is things like testosterone or dihydrotestosterone, and then derivatives or products of those hormones. Or there's things that are mixed with testosterone and progesterone, the female hormone, one of the female hormones, like Deca and Trenbolone. Or there's estrogens and the different estrogen-related molecules, or that scientists have made little alterations in labs to make the little bits of estrogen molecules a little bit differently and suppress the estrogen cycle, or the menstrual cycle more effectively, and prevent an egg from being released. So birth control pills work on the same principles as steroids work to limit fertility. So it's the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. So the gonads, the testicles or ovaries, and the hypothalamus in the brain, and the pituitary gland in the brain. When you short circuit that hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, then the reproductive system shuts off. And the way that you short circuit that is adding outside hormones or sex steroids to the body. Steroids from the outside, sex steroids from the outside. So birth control tablets are female sex steroids in tablet form. And so they take the tablets, and then their hypothalamus recognizes, hey, here's the estrogen, progesterone that we need in the body. We already have a high enough levels. So then it shuts off the hypothalamus from releasing gonadotrophin releasing hormone, which then shuts off the pituitary gland from releasing luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, okay? And then that makes their ovaries not release an egg, okay? So that's how birth control works. And that's also the same reason why when you're taking steroids, if you are not taking HCG at the same time, then you're not going to be fertile, okay? Because like literally taking birth control is taking steroids, like, and it works the exact same way on their fertility as it works for yours. There is literally absolutely zero difference between taking the birth control and taking muscle building steroids in the effect that they have on a female body and a male body. It's the exact same thing. So the first thing with talking to your girlfriend about taking steroids is that she has to know that if she's ever taken birth control pills, she has taken steroids, or if she's taken birth control shot, whatever, any kind of hormone treatment for her fertility, then she has taken steroids. And, then it just comes down to, why does the government provide females with their steroids for free and say it's like some kind of human right? But with the male hormone, testosterone, and the hormones that can come from it, why are they considered evil, something you can't speak of, something not to be proud of, an illegal drug, and something that they're like threatening you to like be taken to jail for? You really start seeing that is corrupt. And there's a lot of really corrupt systems and corrupt things happening in our society right now. You talk about what they're teaching students in colleges and universities. It's really destroying the Western society, and especially the white people. Like, the white people of the world in the West are under attack right now. And it's crazy that I'm talking about this when you talk about how do I talk to my girlfriend using steroids, but you have to be blind to see that things are not being tilted to frame white people as the devil and stuff like that. So by the media and by universities, schools, etc. So telling your girlfriend about it, you just got to tell her that that's what they are, is they're sex steroids, they're hormones, they're male hormones. They're not some kind of diabolical molecule. They're not meth. They're freaking hormones, man. They're hormones, and they don't change. They don't get you high. They don't change the way you feel too much. So, those are telling her, what you're doing. If you feel inclined to tell her, what you're doing, because she might not know, you can tell her that. But the real thing, man, is that if you want to do something, you just do it, okay? Because it's your life, and why would you need permission to do something with your life and your body from a woman? That doesn't make any sense. So if you want to do it, then just do it and tell her that you're doing it. All right. Next question. Jorge says, holy shit, do you believe 1 gram of test is responsible for your recent strength gains? He has seen people doing roids for a long time and they don't have that kind of strength. Okay, what I wanted to tell you, so he's asking about how to get strong and how to use, Jorge is asking about how to get strong and how to use roids for strength. Yes, high dosage testosterone is seriously beneficial to this, and I mean since the 70s and 80s, and possibly even earlier, guys in American and European gyms for powerlifting would be taking 1 vial of testosterone, so 2,500 milligrams of testosterone per week, and often similar dosages of Deca at the same time, but for some, just the testosterone alone. So the synergy of carbohydrates and testosterone makes you really strong, really fast. And when I do that, high testosterone above 1 gram, and I combine that with a high carbohydrate diet, I will be, when I first start doing that each time, I will be adding 5 to 10 pounds on the weight that I use on every single lift, and I'll be adding that every workout. So the same amount of reps. So one workout, I'm doing the dumbbell bench with like 120 pounds each hand for 10 reps or something. Well, you know what? The next workout, if I was eating enough carbs and I was on that much testosterone, over a gram, preferably a little more than a gram, I could legitimately be, lifting 130 pound dumbbells for 10 reps the next workout. Or that's a little bit much because it's dumbbells. I would like to say 125s, but they don't have 125s at my gym, because that would be a little more realistic. But 5 to 10 pounds increase on bench for the same amount of reps, squat, deadlift, etc. It's really impressive, these strength gains that you can get from high testosterone and a high carb diet. And one of the most important things is sugar right after the workout, if you're looking for that strength, and also if you're looking for that size and pumps to the maximum, is the first thing that you do when you finish that workout is you eat like sugary candy, and the muscles soak it up so fast, it's crazy. If you add oral steroids or Trenbolone to high dosage testosterone too, above 1 gram, that's where those steroids really shine. When you just use like high dosage Androgen or high dosage Trenbolone or something, but the testosterone isn't high enough, yeah, it's good, but the synergy of having more than 1 gram or more of testosterone, or a minimum of 750 milligrams testosterone per week, is going to make such an incredible difference in your performance in the gym and how big you get and just your whole steroids experience in general. So yeah, you need to be using a high dosage of testosterone in order to be getting the most out of every other steroid you use. So, and you can use lower dosages with the other steroids too. If you're using over a gram of testosterone, a gram or more, then things like 50 to 100 milligrams of Anadrol per day, or 350 milligrams Trenbolone per week, or 20 to 30 milligrams Superdrol per day, or 30 to 50 milligrams, or even up to 100 milligrams of Dianabol per day. it will like set those other compounds on fire, okay? When you have the high testosterone and you take those kinds of dosages, which aren't that high, of those other compounds, it will set them on fire and you'll have the greatest cycles. That's the thing with testosterone, is that when you have a lot of it in your blood, oh my gosh, it just makes the other steroids like, it's like pouring gasoline all over them. It's like giving them NOS, okay? And then human growth hormone takes that up another level, but instead of just doing it in that way, it does it in its own way, where it just makes your whole body look better. It just makes everything look better. Pretty incredible drugs. But the thing is that these are both bioidentical hormones that have this effect, these really amazing, incredible effects. So human growth hormone, testosterone, your body knows exactly what to do with both of those chemicals because it makes them naturally. You give them good dosages of those coming from the outside and your body responds. That's, I mean, point blank, that's the way it is. Your body knows exactly what to do with them. And then you throw on little dosages of other things, like a little bit of Clenbuterol, a little bit of Dianabol, a little bit of Anadrol, a little bit of Superdrol, a little bit of Trenbolone, medium bit of Primobolan, medium bit of Deca, stuff like that. You know, if you put on any of those things and you put in that with those high dosages of testosterone, with a dosage like 2 to 4 IUs per day of pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, that's when the magic happens. That's when you get the physiques that you see. That's what you get, the physiques that you say, wow, you see that and you think, that looks like alien. Like, how could I ever get my body to look like that? Like, that does not look like something that you know, it looks like this, it's not the same species or something. If you ever look at like pictures and you're wondering about that, like doing these things, okay, that's the high testosterone dosage with a moderate human growth hormone level, with a bit of this other stuff sprinkled in, these other anabolics sprinkled in. This is where you're gonna, you know, when you start doing that on a regular basis, well, that's when you start getting the look that, you know, you see and you think, they got to be from another planet, man. They've got something I don't have. This is what starts doing that for you, bringing that into the picture. All right, next question is from Body Power, and he says, I'd like your opinion regarding long esters, Deca, Boldenone, with half-lives of 14 days plus. I know back in the day it was not uncommon to inject every 2 weeks. I see the sense in this, but what is your point of view? Yeah, back in the old days, they did inject less frequently. They would inject things like, a lot of testosterone wasn't really used except for with powerlifters, okay? Until the 90s, really. Before that, before the 90s, bodybuilders weren't really big testosterone users or big testosterone fans. They just weren't. Most people before the 90s, your average bodybuilder did not use testosterone. Some did use a bit, but your average bodybuilder did not before in the 90s. That's just the way it was. Most of them used D-bol as a replacement for testosterone. They used D-bol because D-bol has a lot of testosterone's effects and used to be prescribed for TRT at 10 to 15 milligrams per day by doctors in the 50s, 60s. So most of them were using D-bol instead of testosterone to get those biological effects, proper sexual functioning, etc. And they would combine this with Deca or Boldenone, Equipoise. And yeah, they would take the tablets every day, or they'd take the Winstrol, or they'd take the Anavar. Those were all popular. But they would take sometimes something like 400, 600, or 300, or even 200 milligrams of Deca or Boldenone, sometimes Primobolan, but most people couldn't get that per week. But some guys took huge dosages. Like, some guys were taking, like, you know, okay. Some guys were taking dosages like 3 cc's per day of Deca, so like 300 milligrams per day of Deca, and they would do that every day. And so they'd get, 2 grams of Deca per week. And then other guys were running those smaller dosages. Generally, as far as your question goes with how often to inject them, man, these things always work better when you're hitting it like over and over and over again. It's like consistency matters so much in bodybuilding. And yeah, like they work fine. Obviously those guys, a lot of those golden era guys were injecting less frequently, and yeah, they worked fine. But like doing it like that, it worked fine. But it's going to be more effective to be injecting it all the time. And you just notice this with bodybuilding in general, and then performance enhancing drugs in general too. With like every single one of them, it's like the more consistently you're hitting it, and the more consistently you're giving your body that stimulus, the more consistently you're doing that training the right way, the more consistently you're hitting that same food every day with the diet every day. It's like everything just falls into place more efficiently and better. And that's the way that I've felt, even with testosterone, like enanthate or cypionate or sustanon. It's like, those long ester ones. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, but it does make a bit of a difference going from injecting only once per week to 3 times per week, or even those ones every day. I've done that, injected them every day, and they just work better like that. They just do, hitting that signal all the time. Bro science alert. So yeah, same with the Deca and Boldenone. I always think that hitting whatever you're using as often as possible, if you're looking for the best results, is the best way to do it. But do you need to do that? No. How often do I inject enanthate? I inject it 2 or 3 times per week. How often would I inject Deca or Boldenone? I would inject it 2 or 3 times per week. That's just my personal preference. Will it work if you're doing it an injection once every 1 week? Yeah, that'll probably be, if you want to do it the most efficiently, then at once per week should be the minimum, I think. And then if you want to make it not quite as efficient but still working good, then you could go once every 2 weeks. There's these tools online. One of them used to be called steroidcalc.com. I don't know if it's still a website. I don't know if it's still available. But this website, steroidcalc.com, had a graph, and you could graph your cycle and look at, how many milligrams of hormone were going to be released on what day compared to how many injections you were doing per week and how often you were injecting per week. And it would show you, where your levels would be each day during the cycle based on the injections and the information that you put into the graph. So that's a tool if you would like to see where your blood levels are at. It used to be called steroidcalc.com. I don't know if that's still the website, but Steroid Cycle Calculator on Google, that should get you there. Next question is from Zach. Next cycle, planning on incorporating Equipoise into the mix as a main mass driver, probably 350 to 500 milligrams testosterone and 600 to 800 milligrams Equipoise. However, I've heard Equipoise can have a strange effect in some users where it crashes estradiol. I've only heard this from my juicehead friends, so your opinion on the matter would be appreciated, man. Yeah, it does. So Equipoise creates a different kind of estrogen than estradiol. So there's 2 main estrogens that are natural, and one's called estradiol and one is called estrone. And so those are abbreviated. Estradiol is E2 and estrone is E1. So if you use Boldenone Equipoise, when the aromatase enzyme, the thing that transforms male hormones into female hormones, but it only does it to some of them, like it transforms testosterone into estrogen. But then something like Winstrol, it can't even, the aromatase enzyme can't interact with Winstrol, so it does nothing. But when it interacts with, the aromatase enzyme interacts with Equipoise Boldenone, it turns it into estrone, or E1, instead of testosterone turns it into, when testosterone interacts with the aromatase enzyme, it turns into estradiol, or E2, and that's the more potent estrogen in the body. Estrone is a less potent estrogen in the body. They both hit estrogen receptors, but estradiol is more potent than estrone. So on a blood test, if you were using Equipoise without testosterone at the same time, and you went to get an estrogen test and they tested for your estradiol E2 levels, well, they might come back up at 0, because since you didn't have any testosterone being converted to estradiol and you only had equipoise in your blood being converted to estrone, well, they're probably not going to be having estrone E1 reading when the data for the test is usually always estradiol levels E2. So that's how that would work. If you added testosterone at the same time, then that wouldn't be a problem. That wouldn't happen. That would only happen like that, where it crashed the estradiol, which I don't even know if that would be a problem. I don't think that would be a problem. I mean, Deca does this too, and people love Deca only without testosterone. They say it works way better, the guys who do that. I don't do that. I don't use Deca with no testosterone, but the guys that do, they say that they like that and that it's way better than with testosterone. All right, next question is from Jax. Is that true that after 6 to 8 weeks we need to switch steroids to keep myostatin low? And it seems that lots of pros don't switch between steroids. Yeah, so myostatin is kind of like SHBG. Actually, the more steroids that you take, the lower that myostatin gets. And also, there's good data that creatine lowers myostatin. But, you know, the main motto of the story with steroids is that more is always better, and that the more you take, the bigger and stronger you get. Okay? So whenever we reduce the dosage or stop taking them, you go backwards, you know? So it's always more is better. Always seems to be the theme. Not that that's a good thing or a good modus operandi, a good way to do it, but it just seems to be the fact. If we're just looking at the facts, that seems to be the way it is. Next question is Marco. I have Primobolan tested here. It's tested 92 milligrams per milliliter. But Primo will not do the same with food, right? Does Primobolan work on low calories like Tren? Eat shit and look lean. No, Primobolan doesn't work like that. Primobolan, it will act like a force field around your muscle and prevent you from losing any muscle when you're not eating a lot of calories, eating a low calorie diet, and it can still give a cosmetic effect like that. But it doesn't like build muscle and like burn fat at the same time and have this crazy effect where it like takes over your metabolism, and whatever you do, you're getting more muscle building and hard and muscular and shit like that all at the same time, like Trenbolone does. It doesn't do that. In order to build muscle on Primobolan, you got to eat food on it. But it will protect your muscle very effectively in a diet. Stuff like Primobolan, Anavar, Trenbolone, most effective drugs, and human growth hormone, most effective drugs for maintaining muscle on a diet.
If you would like your questions to be answered on the Steroids Podcast, go to steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions, or email or private message steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram. Until next time.